Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen. We are back here on ProPix TV. It's James Cousineau with Live Chat with James, and we're going to talk about various events in the news and sports coming up from the past week. Now, yes, I have been away for a week. You haven't had shows, but I appreciate you coming back to the program. Now, of course, during the last week, my time was filled down at the softball city facilities in South Surrey, British Columbia, where I was following and covering the amazing athletes at the Women's International Softball Championship known as the Canada Cup. Now, there were teams that were celebrating sport and participating in the championships from Canada, the US, various cities across both countries, as well as Israel, Ukraine, Czechia, New Zealand, the Netherlands, and many others. The facilities were filled with teams that were just showing excellence in not only softball, but also in sportsmanship and leadership and so many other positive ways. There were teams from Ukraine and from Chinese Taipei that were actually being met by fans of the international female athletes, which was pretty cool to watch them signing autographs and being treated like celebrities in a foreign land. So that was beautiful. And of course, we know that in terms of the main Canada Cup series, congratulations to the Triple Crown Colorado team who walked away with the gold, beating Canada in a very exciting game last night, or 2 nights ago now. And that was an excellent played game. It came down to the final inning, right to the bottom of the seventh, and it came out just phenomenally. Canada walked away with the silver, of course, as I said. TC Colorado, or Triple Crown Colorado, they walked away with the gold. And, of course, the Netherlands were able to follow up with a bronze medal at the game. So it was exciting. In terms of the under-19 team, congratulations to Chinese Taipei, also known as Taiwan. They also played an excellent series and walked away with the gold in their program. So again, the under-19 future golds, congratulations to them and all of the athletes that came together to support the game. Excuse me, folks. Yes, and in that time, we saw many politicians arrive for the opening ceremonies, and that included the mayor of Surrey, British Columbia, and she had a lot to say about how the city of Surrey is welcoming the athletes, about the volunteers that gave of their time to make these games happen, and of course, the organizers who brought it all together. Now, of course, with that said, the games couldn't be possible without the sponsorship of the city of Surrey, of the province of British Columbia, and of course, the federal government, who all come together to help to encourage young athletes to follow their dreams in the world of sports. The athletes that were there at the games throughout the week showed a lot of respect and leadership, not only on the field, but off of the field as well, as they interacted with the fans. And I thought that was a very, very powerful message to be sent to the young girls that were getting autographs and that were looking up to these athletes as really role models as to who they can become in the future. And without the support of the different levels of government and the sponsors such as Save on Foods and so many others, again, it couldn't have happened without all of them. So it really gives a visualization of achieving your dreams to young youth and young children, that they can actually be superstar softball players or anything else that they want to be in the future. So again, congratulations to all of the athletes that took part in the Canada Cup Series, and of course all of the vendors there that supported. And a funny story is that Bob's Donuts, they do the little mini donuts that you love at the fairs and different events. And I walked over, I was thirsty, I was filming and capturing images of the events for the whole week. and different games, different levels of championship games. But I walked over to buy a drink from there, and he gave me a complimentary bag of donuts and my drink. So thanks to Bob's Donuts for that. But what the funny part was is that he saw this guy coming, and I guess, you know, I'm a bit rounder, I'm a bit bigger. And he had this bag and he just stuffed it full of the beautiful little cinnamon coated donuts. And I had to share with some of the spectators because it was more than I would eat in a month, let alone at the one game. So it was pretty funny. But I had told him that I had spent the whole week trying to avoid all of those treats that were just so plentiful. So again, thanks to all of the vendors who also participated in the Canada Cup, and of course Softball City, great venue in South Surrey, that really welcomed everyone so well, did a fabulous job. Their staff really stepped up to the plate, as they say, and really did a phenomenal job hosting the game. So again, watch for it next year. Again, the Women's International Softball Tournament is known as the Canada Cup, and this year they celebrated 30 years of bringing athletes together, and it has only grown in the whole international recognition of sports. So again, it was an excellent event. There are, if you go to the ProPics Canada website, PROPICS Canada.com, you can actually check out a lot of video highlights and a lot of still images from the event. Just follow the link on the homepage there, and you're welcome to take a look. For the teams and the athletes, we actually provide the option for them to download the videos, the photos, all of that at absolutely no charge. We just want to really do our part to not only encourage involvement in the Canada Cup, but we also wanted for the athletes, no matter where they were from, to have the opportunity to take home some of those professional videos and photos. So we put them online so they can download them and share them with their family and friends and their social media, all of that at no charge. So again, you know, we committed the week to covering the games with stills and video, just capturing thousands upon thousands of images and video clips. And again, we make those available free to the players, to the teams, and anybody else. So this way you can really remember the experience of coming to Canada, being included in the Canada Cup games, and just to celebrate the amazing athleticism that was put forth throughout the week. Other teams that were there, of course, Ukraine, and they could not have made it without the support of so many across Canada, and especially on Vancouver Island, who did a lot of fundraising in order to allow for the financial support of the Team Ukraine to be here. Again, it just shows the dedication of the community of Canadians to include everybody in sport equally. Something else that I really appreciated was that you had teams such as Israel, such as Ukraine, Czechia, you had New Zealand, the Netherlands, so many different international teams, but throughout the games, everybody was respectful, and politics had no place on the field or in the stands. And that, I thought, was just an incredible display of respect for the achievement that the players have made in their lives, dedicating it to their sport. Now, of course, we know that there are protests about different issues, and we won't get into that here. But again, for the public to avoid that was just, in my opinion, a great success. Of course, the Israel team did have their own security, the only team that had security at the games. And of course, we can understand why that would be. But as far as my coverage there over the week, it was they had their security, but it wasn't needed too much in terms of what I witnessed and experienced there. It was a very welcoming environment that just showed respect for the achievement of those athletes and the fact that they were participating. Now, I know that there were a few people that spoke out against Israel there, but it was very quiet, for the most part, it just didn't translate into anything significant. And the players, I hope, felt welcomed and felt appreciated, because we appreciated them making that trip during these tough geopolitical times. and the bravery that they showed by coming here not knowing how they were going to be met. And again, I just really give respect to the spectators and the other players, because again, these are young athletes who are working to achieve their dreams. They have worked so hard to develop their skills, to train, to really improve themselves, and to push their personal limits, and to become all-star athletes. They are not political. They do not make the decisions about what happens in government, in geopolitics internationally, in trade, or anything else. So again, I just am really happy to see that the respect was given that these athletes so much deserved, no matter where they were from. So again, thanks for everybody for supporting the Canada Games. If you're interested, they have already announced the Canada Cup, or sorry, I said Canada Games, the Canada Cup. They've announced the schedule for next year in terms of the dates. Of course, teams we don't know yet, but they have announced the dates. So remember that you can definitely join their mailing list or keep up to date on the information. Their website is www.canadacup.com, and you can keep up on the information. You can also go back and look at the stats, the standings, and the awards that were presented, not only in terms of the gold, the silver, the bronze in the different categories, but also the top producers in terms of pitchers and hitters and everything else. So again, check out the CanadaCup.com website, and it is a nonprofit organization. So again, if you want to support the Canada Cup for next year, by all means, you can get more information there on the website as well. And even more importantly, if you're interested in volunteering next year at the Canada Cup softball tournament for the Women's International Championships, by all means, you can find information on that as well. So again, thank you to the organizers and the media team and everybody else at the Canada Cup for welcoming ProPix TV and myself throughout a fantastic week of games. It was very much enjoyed. In terms of other news, folks, of course, we know that trade is again going crazy, whether or not it's between Canada and the U.S., the U.S. putting more tariffs on other countries, including in the EU. It is another temper tantrum by Donald Trump, who doesn't understand the difference between deficits, debts, and supporting nations as opposed to trade deficits. So again, he just does not understand it, or he doesn't care, and that is a big concern. Of course, he has announced again that August the 1st, Canadian products are looking at an additional 35% tariff. Now, these tariffs are paid by the citizens of the United States, but of course, reciprocal tariffs. If Canada goes ahead with tariffs back on the U.S., then Canadians get stuck paying that. Again, the same is to be said for different retaliatory tariffs that are coming in from other nations against the U.S. for their trade. Now, Donald Trump seems to think that he is making America great again. Unfortunately, that is the furthest from the truth. He is destroying a great nation that is built on a century of respect and building relationships with the international community, with working together as a united front towards diplomacy, democracy, and freedom. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of those rights to freedom and respect and rule of law stripped away from Americans and other people who are on American soil. Now, some people will say this is what I voted for, but again, did you vote for this process to circumvent and ignore the Constitution of the United States? Or did you expect for Trump to follow the Constitution, follow the laws of the land, and to implement change from the bottom up or the top down, whichever way you want to start? But did you not expect that he would follow the rule of law? Did you not expect that he would take into account the Constitution that is so deeply ingrained in the development of a great nation, that holds the rights of every citizen and every visitor to the highest level of respect and regard? Or did you say it's okay, he can follow the Constitution when it comes to protecting those who want the right to bear arms, But when it comes to the constitutional policies for the rights and freedoms of individuals to move throughout the United States without unreasonable search and seizure, without undue process, without the right of legal counsel, are these really things that you voted for, or are these things that you're willing to give up in terms of getting to the end of the line for what Trump has promised? That is what you really need to ask yourself. And the big truth is that I think a lot of Americans who did support Trump and the MAGA movement are really disenfranchised with how it is going. I don't think that they really foresaw that Donald Trump was going to throw the rights of individuals out the window and only follow the Constitution as it benefited himself. Now, this shouldn't be a surprise because Donald Trump has always been about, self-gratification, about, enrichment of himself, of his family, and of those who support his ego. And that's what it really comes down to, is that Donald Trump's ego and his desire to be the most powerful person in the world has outweighed his ability to really give cognizant thought to even a simple conversation. He is so drunk with power as it is that he doesn't care what others say. He brought in a lot of the administration this term in order to have the free reign of anything he wants to do. He brought in a bunch of yes people, the yes men, the yes women that are just going to say yes, Mr. Trump, yes, Mr. Trump, to everything that he says. The last administration, that when Trump was in office, was a bit different. He had different policymakers, he had advisors, and he had different members of the cabinets and running agencies that actually stood up and talked back and told him, no, we can't do this. But instead, he has taken the opposite step this time and not brought himself surrounded himself with intelligent intellectuals that have some respect for the Constitution and the people of the United States. And instead, he's just surrounded himself with people who are going to keep their mouths shut and just go with whatever he says, totally disregarding the rights of every person on American soil. And I don't even say American citizens, because he disregards the rights of every person, whether it is tourists, whether it is illegal migrants, whether it is legally landed permanent residents, or citizens themselves. He has made a basic military operation out of getting the different individuals out of the country, claiming that he is targeting those who are accused or convicted of violent crimes and offenses that are against the security of the United States. And let's be real, he is not doing that. He is just going for numbers. He wants to incarcerate, detain, or remove the most numbers within any presidential term in history, and the way he is going about it is completely wrong. He is waging war on his own citizens, and he is becoming an authoritarian dictatorship, and that should be concerning to not only those in the United States, but to people around the globe. Some nations are fighting back. Some are taking it into their own hands. And when I say that, I don't mean in a physical context. I'm talking about in terms of an economic impact. And that could be through the BRICS system or others. But again, there are nations taking steps to really fight back, but there are not enough. Now, let's take, for example, Canada, and I will use that as an example because I am a Canadian. And my opinion on this is that the Canadian people, we need to stand up and tell Trump to shove it up his ass and to stay out of our business. He is using his role in the U.S. government, or as the President of the United States, to try and dictate foreign policy and domestic policy here in Canada and in other nations. There is no room for him to be interfering in the rights, in the processes, the regulations, and the policy of the sovereign nation of Canada or any other. He is claiming that the reason for tariffs, especially the increase to 35%, according to his own letter, is because of the fentanyl crisis in the United States, blaming Canada as a gateway for the ongoing flood of illicit drugs and substances across the border. He also claims that Canada is a direct threat to their national security by allowing a constant flow of migrants and illegals across the border, which again, we represent such a very small amount of what's flowing into the U.S., whether it's through whether it's illegal migrants or whether it is illicit substances. Again, we represent such a small and minute amount in the overall picture that it is just an excuse. He is hiding behind this excuse because of the fact that he needs to have his position that it is a national security threat in order to get away with his executive orders and to unilaterally be imposing these tariffs on different nations. As long as he claims that it's a threat to national security, he has the authority at some level to do so. Now, there are constitutional scholars and others who challenge that line of thought, and really, that would be up to Congress to challenge Donald Trump as well, because he's shown absolutely no respect for the courts, for judges who are telling him that he is operating outside of the realm of the Constitution and the fabric of the United States of America. When the judges do so, of course, he and all of his cronies go and attack these judges and try to have them removed, have them impeached, and just disregard them. Now, of course, we've seen a Congress that doesn't have the balls to stand up to Trump and to force his hand to back off and to do things in a legal and respectful way that really takes into account the Constitution. Again, this is a major issue, and we have another 3.5 years of this. Now, there are, of course, pictures circulating of J.D. Vance wearing a Trump 2028 hat. And remember that this does not state specifically Donald Trump. It just says Trump 2028. So although the MAGA movement take that as a sign that Donald Trump is going to force himself into a third term, it very well could be that one of his sons, if you want to call them humans, because they are heartless and they are brainless. So that's another theory all in itself. But at the end of the day, are they looking to have Trump in a third term, or are they looking to instead pass the torch on to one of his sons and rig an election, or just do away with constitutional movements and democratic processes? We don't know. We'll have to watch and see how that plays out. The big concern, of course, is the more people that support the Trump administration right now, the more they feel that they can get away with it, and they'll feel emboldened and empowered to move forward to try and secure that third term. Again, a very big slippery slope for the United States of America. And again, whether or not you believe that the United States election was fixed or not, whether that was 2020 or 2024, again, it's neither here nor there when you look at the fact that the Congress is not holding the current administration to the foundational principles that built the nation of the U.S. into an internationally respected institution. And that is just being destroyed. And I wouldn't even say brick by brick. They are just taking a wrecking ball to it. And that is disappointing. Now, going back to Canada, in terms of the 35% tariffs that have been announced, the real question is, can Canadians come together and be unified in that response? We've seen most provinces and northern territories coming together to really call out Donald Trump and to insist that Mark Carney play hardball with Trump, that he not back down and bow to the demands of a Trump administration. With that said, of course, there's the outlier of Alberta and the administration of Danielle Smith. She seems to be at the other end and trying to support Donald Trump and his movement out of concern for the oil and gas industry that runs the province of Alberta. She wants to protect the industry and the people of Alberta when it comes to the economic driver of that economy. And that I can respect to a certain point. But when you're looking to protect your own little area, so this would be like trying to protect your own home while the rest of the community is on fire. It just doesn't make sense that you would want to just isolate yourself into your one home instead of trying to protect the greater good of your greater community, which would be Canada. Now, of course, this means that the more you isolate yourself, the more that you're going to anger and frustrate the rest of the nation and remove that respect. Why does that matter? Well, because if there are going to be further pipelines or development in Alberta that needs to get to the West Coast ports or to the East Coast or anywhere else, Danielle Smith and her government, as well as the investors such as the oil companies, are going to be impacted by decisions made by these other governments and the other citizens of those provinces. If the people of Saskatchewan get pissed off enough with Alberta and they refuse to allow the Trans Mountain Pipeline or whatever it's called there, the pipeline going east, but if they refuse that, then of course that creates a big block for Alberta to realize the exportation. The difference being, or the benefit to Alberta, of course, that they do have the southern border with the U.S. They could always, increase the pipeline access and volume going south into the U.S. and build pipelines going south into the U.S. as well for new pipeline projects. But again, it is not going to allow for diversification of the Canadian economic stability. We need to look at, which is in the works, and we've seen that with Carney and other departments within the Canadian government, that they are looking and signing new trade agreements, whether it's in Asia or Europe and elsewhere. They are looking to diversify the markets in which we distribute our products and our exports, and that is very important. But at the end of the day, what level of pain short term are Canadians willing to endure in order to fight back against the US and to secure our future in a more diversified marketplace around the globe? That is the real question, because of course people are about themselves at the end of the day. What is impacting my family? What's impacting my ability to buy that new car? What's impacting my ability to buy that new house? And of course, this, as the tariffs continue, is having a lot of uncertainty added to the Canadian employment market, to the Canadian investment markets, to Canadian industry, and so much more. So again, it does impact individuals, and a lot of people are looking at the smaller picture about how it's impacting themselves, not about the long term, that any benefit that we derive from expanding our marketplace would be felt by themselves in a positive way as well. They are just looking at the short term as opposed to the long game. And I think that's where we really need to focus and hold the U.S. to the level of respect that we deserve as Canadians, and also that previous trade agreements that even Trump was involved in are respected, and that is something that is not being done. Trump is not respecting any nation right now except for Russia, and that is another show in itself that we'll talk about another day, because let's face it, Trump is, protecting Russia. He's lifting certain sanctions and such that were levied against Russian oligarchs and others, and he is doing this quietly while he's distracting everybody with the Epstein files. Now, as we transition here into that topic, it is another one that is very polarizing right now. The government of the United States of America has been going on about the Epstein files, the client lists, the victims, for several years. It is not something that has gone away. The question of whether Jeffrey Epstein actually hung himself in that jail cell or if he was the victim of a murder plot that was well covered up. Those are debates that continue to be in the mainstream. Now, of course, Trump the other day questioned a reporter saying, "Oh, Epstein, you're still talking about that guy? You're still talking about that scumbag?" And I mean, Trump himself is one who, all throughout the campaign, said that he was going to be the one to release the client list, to release all of the files on Jeffrey Epstein along with others. And it is very clear that there are people in high, powerful places that want those lists to be forever lost and hidden or destroyed. And that, of course, we know that Donald Trump was on flight manifests going to the Epstein Island. We know that there are accusations and cases that have been proven where Trump has sexually been inappropriate with individuals. We know that for a fact because he's been convicted. It may be unrelated to the Epstein Island, but again, it shows the type of character that Trump is. And when we look now at Pam Bondi, who said that the client list and the files were on her desk, let's give her the benefit of the doubt for just a moment here. She claims that what she was referring to were the Epstein files on her desk. Now, first of all, they wouldn't all fit on her desk unless she's got a desk the size of Arkansas. But at the same time, she could have been referring to just the generalized dossier or report on the Epstein files as opposed to the actual client list, which, you know, maybe was taken out of context. But in that case, why are the rest of the files not being released? Why is the so-called Epstein list being overlooked? Even Epstein's co-accused, she is in jail for life, and she is speaking out allegedly in, according to some media sources, that she says there was a client list, that there was information. And let's face it, how did she get sentenced and is in the midst of serving a life sentence if there's no actual evidence there that should be released? I think that all evidence should be released and made public, whether or not there is a client list in that treasure trove of information. I think that a lot of things would come out just by releasing all of the other information. Now, Trump, of course, pre-election had been asked about releasing the Epstein files, where he said absolutely yes, and then kind of quickly backtracked, saying that he doesn't want to destroy the innocent lives of people based on fake information or false information. Well, the truth being is that if it is in the FBI files or other law enforcement files, that makes it an official document that should be open to public scrutiny and public review. If there are cases there that have been proven that it was false allegations, then those names obviously should be redacted. But at the end of the day, it is important to have that transparency that was so promised by the Trump administration before they entered office. So where is that transparency? Where is the truth? And why is it not being released? My personal thought is that Donald Trump's name is, again, my personal opinion, my opinion is that Donald Trump's name is all throughout those documents. I think that a lot of people that are close to Trump are all throughout those documents. I think that Trump has been to the island, as per the flight manifests, for more than luncheons. I think that he is a scumbag, a disgusting man, and I wouldn't put it past him to be very much involved in the Epstein files. Now, I also believe that he would be on the Epstein list. Is that why they're not releasing it? That is my personal opinion. That is what I believe. And when it comes to the Epstein list, I also believe there's a lot of other powerful people that were on it that also have been supporting Trump and his PACs and everything else. And that, again, is very concerning. The question is, will this information ever see the light of day, or is it going to be buried with a body on a golf course, or is it going to be locked up in a bathroom and flushed down a toilet at some point? We don't know. And that should be another concern of the American people and the international community. Let's face it, they were operating an international extortion and sex ring. They were trafficking in minors, and they were involved in human trafficking at its worst level. Now, again, my opinion is that Trump is a lot deeper involved in it than he wants you to know, obviously. But I also think that we could probably look at his kids, too, in terms of Donald Jr. and Eric and others, I think that we need to look at the entire Trump organization, the Trump family, and really get to the bottom of the Epstein files and other files. We can look at the P. Diddy case. Now, he has been exonerated or found not guilty of the most damaging charges and allegations, which, again, it's not my place to question whether or not the jury got it right or wrong, because I wasn't in the courtroom. I didn't see the evidence. I didn't hear the evidence. I didn't hear the defense or the prosecution. So, again, it's not my place to state that it was the right or wrong verdict by the jury. From what we understand, from a public perspective and from the public opinion, is that he got away with some atrocious crimes. But again, we didn't, or I personally can't say whether the jury got it right or wrong. It's a matter of whether the case was presented in a proper manner. And when I say that, I don't mean that there was any ill will or intention to prosecute in a less than committed way. What I'm just saying is that maybe the information wasn't presented as completely or in a context that was able to bring the jury forward on those convictions. So again, what role does Trump play when it comes to Diddy? We don't know. We cannot speculate on that for the simple fact that he has been very close to Diddy at times throughout the years, as well as he has with Epstein. But whether or not we'll actually get to the truth, we don't know. Now, when we look at Pam Bondi and other responses when it comes to the video recordings that were allegedly confiscated in the law enforcement raids as evidence, of course, the U.S. government now takes a stand that the tapes were insignificant, that they don't prove anything, or that they are hiding them in the best interest of the victims. Yes, that is a very important statement, and it is very important to protect the victims of Epstein and potentially Trump and others. Very important to protect their identities and protect them from the public. However, there are ways to release information and confirmation or denials through these videotapes as evidence that should be in the public realm. And again, just like documents, you can obscure and remove the identifying features or the acts of individuals, we'll say, from the tapes, and just show screen grabs of individuals in those tapes. When I talk about the individuals, I'm not talking about the victims. I'm talking about the perpetrators and those that were involved in the Epstein and the Diddy incidences. I think that what's happening is a disservice to the victims of these crimes. I think it's a disservice to the rule of law and to the respect of the Constitution to uphold and protect every person as equal. And right now we're not seeing that. We're seeing that money and power is the only thing that's being protected in the United States of America. That, again, folks, is another episode of Live Chat with James. We didn't get to a lot of the headlines we had anticipated. We went a bit long on the other stories that I thought were very important, and also important to bring those countering opinions out to what we're getting in the media in some places. Once again, this is Live Chat with James, coming to you from the ProPix TV studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Take care, everyone, and stay safe. Thanks for tuning in yet once again.